Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and this video where I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of replacements for Salah and Son, because we're at that point of the season where Salah is leaving for African Cup of Nations and Son is leaving for the Asian Cup. They're both leaving for Game Week 21 and they're staying away until at latest Game Week 25, maybe Game Week 24 if they get knocked out of the quarterfinals in their tournaments, but most likely they're going to miss at least 21, 22 and probably 23 as well. So I think there's a case to be made to sell both of them, at least one of them. Otherwise, you'll just store a lot of money on your bench. Players that you have to bench for the next few game weeks, and they're probably going to lose value. They've already gone down in value already. So I think there's a case to be made to sell both of them. But at the same time, Game Week 24, if they're both back for Game Week 24, that seems like a really nice jumping on point because they have two really easy matches before they blank in Game Week 26 again. It's a bunch of stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video. But either way, I think you should sell at least one of them, and that means that you need a replacement, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So I'm going to talk about 14 different players in total, not including these two. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of players to go through. So let's just start with the two main ones, the two players that you probably already have in your team, but I just want to talk about them in general, if they are good picks, if you want to keep them, if you want to bring them in, if you don't have them at this point. And those guys are Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka. They are in most squads at the moment because they have been just really popular players this season. Both have gone up a lot in value, so you probably have a lot of value tied into them. I have that at least for both of them. But these are two players that have had very different fortunes the last few game weeks. Cole Palmer has been one of the best value players in the game, if not the best valued player in the game. I benched him last game week and he scored 18 points, which was really bad for me. But Palmer has just been amazing. He has decent underlying stats and he has amazing points as well. 43 points from the last six matches played, the last six game weeks, and for a price of 5.6 or potentially even for a price of 4.9 if you bought him really early this season. That's just tremendous value. So I can't really see myself selling Palmer at any point this season. He's just too good value. Like even when he has tough matches against Liverpool away and Man City away now in the next few game weeks, you could potentially just bench him in those games. You could also play him in those games because he's just that good. And Chelsea have been pretty consistently good offensively, at least this season, in terms of creating chances. So I think Palmer is pretty much a no-brainer. When it comes to Saka, he is more sort of on the cusp of being sold for a lot of players. But if you look at his underlying numbers, it's pretty crazy that he has so little points lately. So he has scored 20 points in the last 6 game weeks, which is absolutely awful. That's 3.33 points per match, I think, just about. So that's below a lot of like interesting players in FPL. Behind Declan Rice, for example, he scores more points than that per game than what Saka is doing currently at the last 6 games. But looking at the underlying stats of Saka, it's kind of crazy that he doesn't have more points, because compare him to Palmer, who has 23 points more in this same period of the last 6 game weeks. Saka actually has about 1 expected goal moment more than Palmer over the last 6 games. He has 3 big chances more than Cole Palmer over the last 6 games. He has 18 more shots in the box than Palmer in the last 6 games, and also 2 more created chances in the last 6 games. So how Saka ended up being outscored by 23 points by Palmer these last 6 game weeks, I don't know. I don't know what's happening with Arsenal. They've lost 2 games in a row now against West Ham and Fulham. In general, they have been pretty weak in the league in general, and they're sort of losing their top spot in the league after looking really nice and comfy at Christmas. Then 2 losses now, and all of a sudden it's complete chaos with Arsenal. But I think Saka is someone that you should at least keep for 1 game week. Crystal Palace at home seems like a really good fixture, especially if Palace are lacking another player that I'm going to talk about later in this video, Michael Olise. He is likely out for that game, so I think that should be a decent game for Saka. But after that, I think there's a case to be made to sell him, especially if he once again underperforms against Crystal Palace. Because 3 out of the next 4 games after that are away fixtures, and we know Saka is not as good away as he is at home. The only home fixture he has in the next 4 after Crystal Palace is Liverpool at home, which is a really tough game in its own right. So there is a case to be made to sell Saka, but at the same time, looking at his underlying numbers, he should have had so many more points. And this is not usual for Saka. He's not some Darwin type of player who misses a lot of chances usually and like underperforms his stats. He's usually someone that overperforms his stats. And if you just go back and look at his previous 6 games before this last stretch of games, these last 6 games, if you go back to Game Week 9 to Game Week 14, he actually scored 34 points, but with way less underlying numbers. Like, compare the numbers and you can see just a huge change in the underlying stats. So expected goal involvement, he had 2.65 in Game Weeks 9 through 14. And then Game Weeks 15 through 20, he had 4.23. So about 2 expected goal moment less than the past few game weeks in the 9 through 14 game weeks for Saka. but he scored 14 points more for some reason. So Saka has been sort of like an annoying pick earlier in the season because he was just like consistently performing like decently but not that good, so we were expecting more from Saka. But then lately he's just not been performing at all in terms of the numbers, in terms of the actual points. When it comes to the underlying stats and the chances created and the big chances and all that stuff, he's doing much better. He had 0 big chances from game week 9 through 14 and still scored 14 more points when he had 5 big chances in game weeks 15 through 20. So I don't know what's up with Saka and Arsenal in general. I think they need a new striker. Maybe they'll get that in January. Maybe that'll help Saka. Maybe he'll get some rest. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. But I think it's also partly due to not being lucky enough. I think it's sort of down to that as well. Saka has usually been performing much better than his expected numbers. So I don't know. I still think Arsenal and Saka can turn it around. But this is sort of like an inflection point of the season for Arsenal. If they really want to be title contenders, they really have to turn the tides pretty quickly. So I don't know. We'll see with Saka in the next game against Crystal Palace. If he looks good in that game, if he looks good in the FA Cup against Liverpool, then maybe you should stay clear of potentially selling him. But for now, I think he could be someone that you could sacrifice in order to get like a better player at that price point, because he is 9.0, which is quite a high price for Saka if he's not delivering. So the time is ticking for Saka, but I still think his underlying numbers, basically, or the last few games at least, tells you something about his potential and how good he can be if Arsenal all of a sudden turn it around. And they do have the fixtures to do that as well, at least in the next 2 against Crystal Palace at home and Nottingham Forest away. Those are 2 decent fixtures to get points in. After that, maybe not so much, but yeah, Saka, interesting choice. But yeah, just wanted to touch on both Saka and Palmer to start this video, because most of you guys probably have them in their squad. But if you don't have them, I would not bring in Saka, but I would bring in Palmer probably. But I would probably keep Saka for now at least. So that's my verdict for those 2 guys. And then to accompany them in the squad currently, we have 3 other like sort of template picks. I know a lot of people, me for example, who use the wildcard, have 4 out of these 5 with Palmer, Saka, and then 2 out of these 3 that I'm going to present to you now. And those 3 are Richarlison, Foden, and Bowen. Personally, I didn't go with Richarlison. I was kind of iffy on him before last game week, and then he scored against Bournemouth and looked pretty good again. So now I'm really considering selling Salah to get in Richarlison myself. So that's one of the players that I'm really intrigued by personally. And obviously Foden and Bowen are both players that I brought in on my wildcard in Game Week 20, so I really like those guys as well as prospects. But let's start with Richarlison first, because he's sort of the main guy for me, at least, that I'm considering as a replacement for Salah. But Richarlison basically has been playing as a striker lately and has been really good. As you can see from the numbers, just fantastic numbers and fantastic scores as well. 42 points, really good from him. He has started 5 out of the last 6 games. Played 373 minutes, which is not too good. He usually gets subbed off pretty early. He could have played 540 minutes in total if he had played every single minute. But yeah, he's missing quite a few minutes. But I think now with Son leaving, he's going to be staying on the pitch for longer, and he's also going to be on penalties. So several cases to be made for Richarlison to join your FPL team if you don't have him already. So I think he has really good underlying stats. 15 shots in the box, only 2 chances created. That tells you something about Richarlison. He's pretty selfish when it comes to his chances. He wants to finish and he wants to score, which is good in FPL because you really want those goals when you have those types of players like Richarlison. So yeah, that's probably a good sign. 3.69 expected goal moment is also really, really good. So for the price of 6.9, that is a really nice deal for Richarlison. So I think he is a really, really good option. When it comes to Foden, I think he's probably an even better option personally, because I think Man City's fixtures and potentially double game week in Game Week 25 as well is going to be a really good advantage for basically all Man City attacking players. That's the one downside with Richarlison. He's not going to have a double game week in the next 6 game weeks, but he's going to get a blank most likely in Game Week 26. I've already blanked out his fixture in Game Week 26 on this chart. But most likely, if they go through in the cup and they face, Middlesbrough, I think, in the cup. I think it's like Chelsea against Middlesbrough and Spurs against Fulham or something. I don't know. They have pretty easy opposition, Chelsea and Fulham, in the cup. So I think they're going to go through. And that means that they will blank in Game Week 26. But that's not confirmed yet, so you have to wait for that. But that's the one downside with Richarlison, I guess. But that's Game Week 26. That's pretty far into the future, so it doesn't really matter that much because you can just sell him for someone else at that point. But yeah, Foden does not have that disadvantage. He's not going to blank in Game Week 26. He has already blanked a game week in Game Week 18 when Man City were out in the Club World Cup. And that fixture is going to be put into the fixture list again. And it's most likely going to come in this run of the next 6 fixtures as well for City, because they have a pretty tight schedule towards the end of the season. So most likely the double game week fixture is going to come in Game Week 25. and that game is going to be at home to Brentford. So that means that he'll play at home to Chelsea and at home to Brentford in Game Week 25, if that is confirmed. That's still also going to be something we have to wait for because we don't have it confirmed yet. The fixtures haven't been put into the fixture list as of yet. But it's most likely going to be within these next 6 fixtures. Very, very likely so, I think. So I think that for that reason, City assets are just a premium currently. And we all know that Haaland is the one that we really want. He's the one that we want to get in as a forward, with Salah or Son or potentially both leaving the midfield. You'll get the money to spend there. So Foden, he is 7.8, quite pricey at this point, but I don't think it's that big of a price for Foden, who's playing his best football at the moment. He's looking really, really good. The stats back it up, the points back it up, especially the last few games. He's been amazing. He's played 90 minutes the last few games as well, 504 out of 540 minutes the past 6 game weeks, started all 6 matches. Just fantastic numbers from Foden. So I think he is pretty nailed, and I think he should be also pretty nailed in your teams as well. If you don't have him already, I think he's like the prime option to target, unless you don't have Palmer. But I think even then, I think Foden might be the one to target over him as well. Maybe not for this upcoming game week against Newcastle, but at the same time, Newcastle are pretty shit currently. They're pretty bad, so even though the fixture is marked as a light red fixture, which is the second most difficult fixture, most likely Newcastle will still be kind of tired and still be all over the place. So I think that's a decent fixture as well for Foden. So I think Foden should be a priority, but perhaps even a higher priority for this particular game week, if you really like him as a prospect, is Jarrod Bowen, because his best fixture in the next 4 fixtures is by far the fixture now in Game Week 21 against Sheffield United. Sheffield United away is basically the prime fixture of the season. Yes, Sheffield United have looked better lately, but they are still losing kind of like 1-0, 2-0, and West Ham don't really need to win more than 1-0, 2-0 for Bowen to get like a goal or a goal and assist and then bonus points and stuff. So that's the best fixture for Bowen, and you can also make the case for him to be the best captaincy option in Game Week 21 as well, especially if Haaland is not back. I think Bowen could potentially be the best captaincy option. You also have, obviously, Palmer against Fulham at home. That's really nice. You also have Saka against Crystal Palace at home if you think that his underlying numbers will finally show up. But I think Bowen is a really good pick for this game week in particular. So I think if you want to get Bowen, this is the game week to get him. So yeah, if you really like Foden and Bowen, like I do, for example, because I have both of them in my own team, then Bowen this game week and Foden in game week 22 is probably more the route you want to go with when you sell Salah and Son. So you could sell Salah for Bowen this week and use that to get Haaland up front, and then do Son to Foden next week. Or maybe you have to do all 3. Maybe you have 2 transfers, free transfers, and you can do 3 moves for only -4 and bring in Haaland. That would also be a decent move. So you could potentially do that as well. But I really like all 3 of these players, especially for this game week. Bowen, if you really like him. The thing with Bowen though is his numbers don't really jump out of the page. It doesn't really look like fantastic, like amazing if you compare it to the other guys. It's still really good. Expected goal involvement is higher than Foden, for example. He has less points though than both the other players, and he also has he has 4 big chances, which is really good. Not quite as good as Richarlison with his 7 big chances, but still a really good player. So in general, there's a reason why these 3 are template picks, because they are really good picks to have currently in FPL. So there is a case to be made that the midfield you want is probably just Saka, Palmer, Richarlison, Foden, Bowen, which is pretty boring. But at the same time, not all people have that midfield currently. Not all people will get that midfield. They are players that are not too highly owned. Don't have the exact stats for the total ownership percentage right now, but yeah, they are pretty decent players in general, and pretty nice differentials in some ways. But they're going to be a lot more popular in the next few weeks, and that also means that they're probably going to go up in price a little bit as well. I know Bowen has gone up in price. I think Richarlison has gone up in price already as well, and Foden is also on his way up in price. So these guys are really popular at the moment, and there's a reason for it, because they have really good minutes. They have Richarlison not so much, but Richarlison is going to have more minutes now with Son leaving. But apart from that, Foden and Bowen have really good minutes. All 3 have really good underlying stats, and all 3 have gotten quite a few points lately as well. So I think all 3 players are really good. The thing with Bowen, and the way that I'm thinking about him, because I already have him in my team, he's someone that I might sacrifice in game week 22 personally, or game week 23 or 24 potentially as well. Kudus is going to come back at some point for West Ham as well, and I think he's actually been the better FPL prospect so far this season, at least the last 10 game weeks. But it also could make a case for Bowen to be the better pick out of the 2, because he's going to be the more nailed prospect going forward, because Antonio is going to come back as the striker for West Ham. We know how much David Moyes loves Antonio, and Bowen's going to be nailed on at that right wing spot if it doesn't play up front. But currently, even with Antonio back, I still think Bowen is going to play up front and Kudus is going to play right wing. But West Ham could also bring in a new striker in January as well. So yeah, it's hard to gauge really, but I think Bowen is really good. immediately, and then in the like short term-ish, he's not that good because he has like tougher matches against Bournemouth, which is a tough team currently. Man United away, which is not the worst fixture, but it's still like not like a fixture you feel like super confident about. And then Arsenal, which is again a team that is struggling currently, but actually have a really good level normally, Arsenal. So yeah, Bowen is kind of like, I don't know, I'm pretty sold on him, and he's just a really good pick in general. And after the match against Arsenal, they have really good fixtures, but that might be where you want to have Kudus rather than Bowen. But Bowen is for sure someone that is really nice, especially this game week, and then he is a pretty good option after that as well. It's just he's a bit pricey, so yeah, I think I made a case kind of more towards Richarlison and Foden in this than Bowen. But like I said, Bowen could potentially also be the best captaincy option this week, so maybe he is the priority buy yet. But all these three players are really, really good. If I had to rank them all, I think Foden is like my main guy I would want to have for the next 6 game weeks, especially with the easy fixtures that they have and the double game week potentially in game week 25. Richarlison, I really like. I think it's pretty dead heat between Richarlison and Bowen for that second spot. But I think Richarlison with the added minutes and the added penalties, something that Bowen doesn't have, he's not on penalties. I think that's going to sway it a bit more towards Richarlison as well, especially if Spurs get a certain someone back in midfield who we're going to talk about pretty soon. But yeah, these 3 picks are really good, really template picks as well. So I would recommend all 3, but at the same time, you have to choose between them as well, probably, if you don't have any of them. So yeah, hopefully you got some more clarity from watching this. But yeah, all 3 good picks are really good picks. So yeah. Next up, I want to talk about 3 picks that are potentially not as good. 3 players that are sort of black sheep, if you will. 3 players that are really good players in their own right, as like footballers at least, but as FPL prospects lately, not the best. I mean, Bernardo has been pretty good. I can't really fault Bernardo, but I just think Foden is just a better pick than Bernardo if you compare the stats. Foden just pretty much across the board has better stats than Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva actually has one more big chance the last 6 game weeks, but apart from that, I think Foden has basically just about as many minutes. He has better point total, better shots in the box, even better chances created as well. You also have the fact that with De Bruyne and Haaland coming back, and also Alvarez playing really well, or playing decently at least, Foden playing really well, Doku is on his way back from injury, Grealish is playing lately as well, there is a case to be made for Bernardo to play more centrally and play more as a midfielder rather than a winger that he has been playing lately. So for that reason, I don't think Bernardo is the best potential option. Then if you look at Bruno Fernandes and his points, 7 points in the last 6 games played, it's just absolutely awful. Fernandes was like one of the most popular players to have at the start of the season. And he's just completely flopped this season. And partly recently, that's because McTominay has played sort of more the attacking role in midfield. Fernandes has played deeper. Fernandes still has decent numbers in terms of expected goal involvement at least, and chances created. 19 chances created is really, really good. 2.45 expected goal involvement is really good as well, but Man United just can't finish their chances. It's sort of the same thing as with Arsenal and Ødegaard as well. Ødegaard has created 22 chances, which is amazing, and 3.40 expected goal involvement, but just like with Saka, he's just underperformed. 22 points from Ødegaard the last 6 game weeks. So that double up in midfield from Arsenal that I thought it was going to be really good has looked good when it comes to underlying numbers. When it comes to actual points, it has not been that good. So I don't think either of these 3 are that good picks, to be honest. I just wanted to have it sort of as a comparison and just to cover these players as well. Yeah, I would not pick any of these 3 guys. Maybe Ødegaard if Arsenal all of a sudden look a bit better, especially when he plays Burnley and stuff in Game Week 25. He might be an option at that point, but for now, I'd probably just stay clear of Ødegaard. If you already have Saka, that's more than enough Arsenal coverage for now, I think. But they could also explode. Maybe all of a sudden they play really well. But yeah, I think Saka should cover everything that Ødegaard has and more, basically. So yeah, I don't really think either of these 3 players are that interesting to look at too much. So let's move on to the next section. And the next section are what I would like to call injury returnees. 3 players that have been injured and are sort of on their way back in different forms. You actually have Jota, who has been back now. He came back in this past game. He came on and scored, actually. Has looked pretty good. De Bruyne, who's back in training. He was in the squad last time. Didn't come on to play matches, or didn't come on to play any minutes. But he's most likely going to play some minutes in the FA Cup fixture now this weekend. So he's looking pretty good. And then we have Maddison, who's not yet back. He's not even back in training. That's the latest news from today. Ange Postecoglou basically said that Maddison has not even been in training yet, and he doesn't know when he's going to be in training. So that's not really good for Maddison in terms of his future FPL prospects. But we also know that Game Week 21 is also 1 game or 1 week away. and the game week is also lasting 2 weeks. So it's actually going to be 3 weeks until game week 22 when Maddison and Spurs play Brentford at home. And by that point, Maddison could actually be fully fit, because that's a long time for him to recover, because he was supposed to be out until January, and we're in January now. And yeah, he's not back in full training yet, but he might be back for game week 22. So he's definitely someone you could consider for game week 22 beyond, because game week 22, 23, 24, 25, he has really good fixtures in general, Maddison, and then he most likely blanks in game week 26. But those fixtures are really good. But I just think currently Richarlison is just the safer bet, because we know he's going to play. We know he's going to be really good and involved. And I think when both are on the pitch, I think Richarlison has the better penalty record, potentially. I don't know. I think Richarlison should be the penalty taker, but it's kind of 50-50. I'm kind of leaning more towards Richarlison being the penalty taker, even if Maddison is back. But yeah, we know Maddison is going to be back on set pieces and stuff when he's back. 21 chances created in his last 6 starts between game week 5 and game week 10 before he got injured in game week 11. So yeah, he was really good back in those days, Maddison. If you double up on Maddison and Son, you probably got a lot of points by that point. So I think Maddison is good, but I think Richarlison in the short term and Son when he comes back, probably better picks than Maddison in general this season. But Maddison is really good in his own right, and there is also a case to be made to double up on Spurs players in the long term, like people did at the start of the season when it looked like Maddison and Son were going to perform really well, and they did. So yeah, I really like Spurs offensively. Ange Postecoglou is playing super offensively all season, even with a lot of players injured. He keeps sticking to the same system and playing a lot of offensive football. So Maddison is a decent pick, but maybe not for now. Maybe wait and see how his injury lines up and if he's back for game week 22. But if he's back fully fit for game week 22, he could be a really good option as well. But I think Richarlison is just a better pick currently with all the stuff, and Maddison coming back from injury and stuff. Coming back from injury is always going to be something that you have to be a bit careful about, because you never know how much they're going to play. Maybe they're going to be matched into getting some more playing time and stuff. That could also be the case for De Bruyne and Diogo Jota, but I think Jota in particular is someone that is going to get more playing time straight away, because Salah is obviously leaving. He's leaving a gap in the Liverpool attack, and Jota has just been a really nice plug-and-play player earlier in his career as well, especially in Liverpool. He's just been a terrific player and sort of been the anti-Darwin, if you will, because Diogo Jota just basically scores when he gets the chance, and Darwin does not really. So I think if Jota plays a lot of matches, he's going to be a good pick. You can see from his numbers, really good underlying numbers. Only 327 minutes in the last 6 starts, or the last 6 game weeks he has participated in. But that's partly down to him being back from injury and coming into the game the last 2 games and actually getting point returns in both matches. So yeah, Jota is pretty effective, but it remains to be seen how good Liverpool are without Salah, and they also don't have the best fixtures. So that's sort of what turns me off of Diogo Jota. To be fair, Liverpool could also double in game week 25. And that's from the game week 26 fixture against Luton being postponed, or perhaps even being put forward a bit for game week 25. That's still a possibility, but I think Liverpool would have to be knocked out of the cup or go through in the cup when they face Arsenal in the FA Cup, and also go through in the League Cup, obviously, to get that 26 fixture postponed. And even still, I think it might not be the case that they get a double game week in 25, but that is a possibility. And if that is a possibility, then Jota in would be a decent pick. He does have decent fixtures as well. It's not the worst fixtures. Bournemouth away. Bournemouth have been really good lately, but they also showed against Spurs that they can concede a lot of goals. So that could be a good fixture. Chelsea have conceded a lot of chances late in the whole season, basically. That could also be a good fixture at home at Anfield. Away to Arsenal, it's going to be a tough game, but still, Liverpool have a pretty good score in those games the past few years as well. So it doesn't have the worst matches, Jota. So if Jota is confirmed to play most games for Liverpool, if it seems like he's going to be a mainstay with Liverpool now with Salah being out for African Cup of Nations, he's definitely a good pick because he has really good underlying numbers. But I think just a minute restriction, potentially the tough-ish matches, and then Salah potentially being back when you actually need a Liverpool player in game weeks 24 and 25, potentially. I think I'm going to stay away from Jota myself, but he's also a bit more. He's a bit expensive, 7.7. Obviously, the picks that we've talked about for now have been sort of the same price range. Only Richarlison has been cheaper, I think, apart from Palmer, obviously. But the players that I'm going to mention next as well are actually some cheaper differentials that I'm going to go into. But yeah, before we go into the cheaper differentials, let's talk a little bit about De Bruyne as well. He's someone who's even more expensive, obviously, 10.2, which is quite pricey, but that's the thing with De Bruyne. We know how good he can be if he's back to his best, and if City are back to their best, and the fixtures that they have, especially with the Burnley at home fixture, Brentford away is still a really good fixture. Everton at home is a good fixture for them. Chelsea at home is a decent fixture for them. And then on top of that, getting the double in game week 25 with Chelsea at home and Brentford at home, it could be a really nice time to have De Bruyne, especially seeing as he's going to be a massive differential with no one having him in their squad currently. I think De Bruyne is a really interesting pick if you can find the money to get him. That's the only thing. You need the money saved up in the bank, and luckily for me, I've used my wildcard, so I have quite a bit of money in the bank, so I could potentially get him, especially if I go with one of these cheap differentials that I'm going to talk about in the final page. But yeah, looking at the underlying numbers from De Bruyne at the end of last season, and this was the part of the season where City were sort of confirmed as champions, and they didn't really have to play their hardest. They could just basically just coast to the title. He played 391 minutes, started 5 out of the 6 games possible that they played towards the end. Either way. He had 2.76 expected goal moment, 0 big chances, which is not the best, 3 shots in the box, which is not the best, but he still got 41 points because he's just that amazing. He doesn't really need the biggest chances to score, and he can also assist from anywhere. So we just know how good De Bruyne is, and if he can find the money, I think he's going to be a really good pick if he plays as well. But we have to just wait and see how he looks in the FA Cup, see how he looks against Newcastle. Potentially, you could also take a punt on him against Newcastle in that match if you could wait a game week with Haaland, especially if Haaland is injured. You could bring in De Bruyne this week and then do the move with Salah or Son out and get the money for Haaland that way in game week 22 if Haaland is out for game week 21. But I think De Bruyne is one that you could wait for game week 22, and if he looks good in the FA Cup and the game against Newcastle, it might be the time to pounce. So maybe you need to save up money and have enough money in the bank to be able to bring in De Bruyne for someone like Son. You would need to have money in the bank to do that because Son is cheaper than De Bruyne. So if that is the way you want to go, then you want to have a cheaper differential this week as a replacement for Salah. And I have a couple of possibilities for that transfer scenario as well, coming up with these 3 players right here. So yeah, these are basically the 3 sort of differential cheap-ish picks that I really like. One of them, the player that I like the most, and I should talk about first, is Michael Olise. The only downside with him, and the only reason that I'm not set on bringing him in already this game week, is the fact that he has had a recurring hamstring injury. So Roy Hodgson talked about yesterday. I can't remember which day it is now, Wednesday, I guess. Wednesday, Roy Hodgson said that Olise has had sort of like a flare-up with his hamstring. He was out with a hamstring injury for the start of the season. He came back and was fantastic in the last 6 games. As you can see, 42 points, really, really good. 4.26 expected goal moment, fantastic. 3 big chances, 14 shots in the box, 17 chances created. Like that, those are amazing numbers. And on top of that, they have really good fixtures both against Sheffield United in game week 22 and Burnley in game week 26 as well. And as we know, game week 26 is going to be a blank game week for Spurs, or most likely going to be a blank game week for Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Luton. And we have a lot of players from those teams already in our squads. If you want to have Richarlison, if you have Trent Alexander-Arnold, if you have Palmer, you already have 3 players right there that are going to blank in game week 26. So game week 26 seems like a really good game week to have a player with a good match, and that's where Olise comes in. And also, to be fair, the other 2 in this page as well, Garnacho and Neto. But Olise has a really good fixture in game week 26. Game week 25 is not as important because that is most likely going to be the double game week where you might have a Luton player with a double. Brentford and Bournemouth are doubling that game week as well, on top of Man City potentially. That is just still what is projected currently. Those are not confirmed fixtures, but that is the possibilities that we're looking at currently. But yeah, game week 25 is not too important when it comes to having a good match, but game week 26 is important when you need a player to play when all those Chelsea, Liverpool, and Spurs players blank, and potentially Alfie Doughty for Luton as well, who could be a really nice game week 25 differential in a double game week. But yeah, Olise, fantastic numbers, 5.9. Played way too many minutes, to be fair, compared to what he should have, and that's probably why he's had that recurring hamstring injury. And so we just got to see if he's injured, but if he's back fit, especially for game week 22, doesn't really matter that much for me, at least in game week 21, because I don't really need another attacker for that game week. I could easily just bench whoever I bring in for Salah that game week. But game week 22 onwards, it would be really nice to have Olise. So if he's back fit for that game week, that would be absolutely fantastic, because I think it looks fantastic. Like I said the word fantastic twice there, but I think it looks absolutely amazing. He's also potentially on penalties. We don't really know confirmed yet, but he played at the same time as Eberechi Eze when Palace got a penalty, and Olise stepped up to take it. So we assume for now that he's the penalty taker above Eze. But yeah, Eze in his own right is also a decent pick, but I think Olise is just a better pick if he's fit, and if Elise is not fit, I think Eze also is like a less intriguing option, because I think Crystal Palace sort of need both of those players to perform at their highest level. So yeah, I really like Elise, but it's just a shame with his injury. Then we have Neto, who has sort of the same profile. He has a really good fixture in Game Week 26 against Sheffield United at home, where we need a really good fixture because that's a big blank game week. I really like that about Neto. He's also coming back from injury, came on in the last game and played a couple of minutes. I think he created a pretty big chance. He looked pretty good when he came on, and Wolves in general have looked really good lately, the last two fixtures. And yeah, it seems like Gary O'Neill is working up something nicely in Wolverhampton. So I think Neto is really a good pick. He is the standout option at Wolverhampton as well. He's like their diamond in the rough, I guess, their hidden gem. He's been out injured as well, obviously, Neto. He could have been in the injury returnees page of this video, but yeah, either way, I think he's a really good pick as well. He's 5.6, priced at 5.6. If you look at his last 6 matches played, which is a couple game weeks back, it's this past game week, and then game weeks around 9 to 14 something, somewhere around those lines. He performed pretty consistently those games. He got like 5 points, 6 points, 7 points each and every game week. It seemed like ended up with 28 points from all these game weeks combined, and that is including that 1 pointer that he got now in game week 20 where he came on and played just a couple minutes. But yeah, he has like not the best underlying stats, but I think that's also because Wolves weren't as good at that point of the season when he played. But now Wolves are actually firing on all cylinders and are actually creating a lot of chances and looking really good and scoring a lot of goals. And I think that's going to benefit Neto quite a lot. So I think Neto is going to kind of explode a little bit. He's also been sort of like a breakout player. All these 3 players have been breakout-ish players so far this season. Olise especially has looked just absolutely fantastic, and you can see why both Manchester City and Chelsea were interested in him before the season. But yeah, Neto's looking good. Wolverhampton are looking good. His underlying numbers are not looking as good as some others, but I think he's still a really good pick, and he's also a really nice player to have in Game Week 26 where you really need him. And he's someone you can bench, he's someone you can start, doesn't really matter that much. Like he's someone that is a really nice complementary player for a cheap price. So yeah, if you need a cheap midfielder, I think he is someone you should definitely consider if Elise is out especially. And then the final player that we can consider as well is Alejandro Garnacho for Man United. Comparing him to Bruno Fernandes, and he has just better numbers pretty much across the board apart from chances created. But even like 8 chances created from Garnacho is pretty good. But 19 shots in the box, absolutely amazing. 3.29 expected goal moment from Garnacho, really good as well. 29 points, which is decent from the last 6 game weeks. He started all 6 matches, played 502 out of 540 minutes. So he looks pretty good across the board. It's just the fact that he plays for Man United and they are kind of terrible currently. That's the only like thing I have against him. And also the fixtures aren't the best for the next few game weeks, but at the same time, Garnacho could potentially be, if you have the 4 or like 7 really good attackers and you just want that 8th attacker who's not going to be too intrusive into your team, who's just going to be riding on your bench for a cheap price, then Garnacho I think is one of the best options you can go with, especially if you need the money. If you don't have that much money, if you don't have, because it costs quite a lot to go from Alvarez to Haaland, so if you need all the money in the world, then maybe Garnacho is someone that you have to go with because you don't have enough money in the bank. Maybe you need that extra money compared to Neto and Elise to bring in De Bruyne, for example, in Game Week 22. So yeah, Garnacho is a really nice enabler. He has decent fixtures. We know he can score from anywhere and in any which way, like he did against Everton. And he could also explode further and become even better if Man United finally get into gear and actually look like a good team again. But yeah, that's the only drawback with him. He plays for Man United, but at the same time, he's also someone that is playing consistently for a cheap price and plays for a team that has really high potential if they actually fire on all cylinders. So I think Garnacho is also a really good option. So yeah, those are all the 14 options in this video. I've talked for a little bit more than half an hour now. So yeah, I hope that was informative. I hope you have some nice players to consider. Personally, looking at all the players that I've gone through today, I really like Palmer, obviously. I think he is a must-have in each and every team, basically. I think it's going to be great value for the entirety of the season. The games against Fulham and Wolves at home in the next 3 game weeks, really amazing. So I think Palmer is a really good player to have, but you probably have him already. If you don't, probably should look to bring him in for that cheap price. Saka, someone that I would probably hold on to if I have him, at least for 1 or 2 game weeks. If I don't have him, I probably wouldn't buy him, but I think he has huge potential as well, as he's shown with his underlying numbers. Then we have Richarlison, Foden, and Bowen, all three fantastic picks. And yeah, if you fancy one of them, then definitely go for them, because I think they are legit picks, all three of them. And I think they're going to play quite a bit going forward. We know Bowen is going to play every game. Foden has played pretty much 90 minutes every game the last few game weeks, and just looks like a vital player for Man City, even with De Bruyne and Haaland back. And that might even make him an even better prospect in FPL. We know how high of a ceiling Foden has. So I think Foden is one of my favorite picks currently as well. I have him in my own squad, pretty happy about that. And Richarlison as well, another great pick who's going to play a lot more and be on penalties now with Son leaving. So he's another great pick. Fernandes, Bernardo, and Ødegaard, not so much. Don't really have to talk more about them. Madison, wait and see. De Bruyne, also kind of wait and see. Like, gauge his value in the next few games, how he looks for Man City in the cup game and against Newcastle. Looks like a good pick. I think it would be a really nice differential that not that many people would be able to get in Game Week 22. So I'm currently eyeing De Bruyne if he looks back to, like, partly back to his best at least. Jota, really nice differential. I think he's a risky-ish pick because of the, like, just the wealth of attacking talent that Liverpool have. And also the fixtures are kind of not the best and stuff, like I mentioned previously. But Jota is also like a really tasty differential. I think he's like one of those players that could potentially explode and be the best player of the bunch out of these players. But he's also a player that could fizzle out and not play that much minutes before Salah comes back. And if Salah comes back early, it's also just going to be bad for Jota. So as a long-term pick, not so much. Short-term, really risky, but potentially really high rewards as well. So if you're a risky type of player who likes to gamble, I think Jota is also a really nice pick for you. Garnacho, Olise, and Neto, just talked about them as well. Really like all three, especially if you need the money in the bank, especially if Olise is back fit and healthy. I think Olise is probably my favorite player to bring in if he is back fit and healthy for Game Week 22 at least. So yeah, that's pretty much the differential pick video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed it as well. Hope you liked the video. That would also help me with the algorithm and all that stuff on YouTube. So yeah, either way, thank you for watching. Thank you for leaving comments as well. I had some really nice comments about wanting to see me continue this journey as a FPL content creator. So really nice to see that as well. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you for that as well. But either way, thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.